So now that we have our 3 categories, our 6 goals, what we need to do is break that down into the year. So I'll call this year to success, right? And what we're going to be doing in this one is we're just going to go over one goal. So for me, that will be becoming the best speaker I could be. So that's one of my year goals, right? And again, we have 6 of these. Now, depending on the person, it might be better for you to have one in each category. For me, since I did do this last year, I'm more comfortable doing more. So 2 in each category is good for me. This is one of my physical categories, right? And I guess it could probably be a mental category as well, since it is speaking. But that's what we're going to use for this example. And then what you'll do is you'll take what we do here and use it on all of your other goals, right? So this is the output we want for the year. And then we need our inputs that are going to get us to that output. So what I like to do is kind of what we did before, where it's what makes the most progress, the Pareto principle, right? So I have a list of what I could do. And usually I probably only do like 5 because you're only going to do 1 or 2 of these, right? So 5 things that you can do that will get you the closest to that goal, right? Becoming the best speaker you can be in this case. So then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll say 6. So whatever you feel like you can do, that'll get you to there. And then circle the top 2 that you think will make the most progress. Okay? For me, I think I did 3 on this one. I think I did 3 on all of them, actually. But for the sake of this, we're just going to go over 2 of the ones that I chose. One was 1,000 pieces of content, and the other one was 10 keynote speeches made and being used. Okay, so those are can't read that, but those are my 2 outputs for the year that I believe will make me get to my goal faster. Okay? So this is where we're going to start. We have these 2 goals, and then again, I'm going to reduce this even further. Actually, no, we'll go over both. So now that we have those 2, what we need to do is figure out our quarters, which this is the simplest one of all of the things that we're doing, just because this is the one you don't really have to think as much. You just have the outputs. So this is your output, right? That's for the output for the year, and then we have the inputs, the 2 inputs that I said, right? 1,000 content and the 10 keynote speeches, right? So these are what it is for me. For you, it's going to be different. These are just for my goals. But it's a good example because it's tangible, right? Or you can't put your hands on it, but whatever. So we have the year broken into 4 quarters, which is how I like to do things, which means 3 months, right? 3 months at a time. So quarter 4 is the easiest because quarter 4 is literally the year. So by the time you get quarter 4, you want to have certain things by the end of quarter 4 done, which is ultimately your yearly goal, right? And the inputs to get to that output. Okay. So quarter 4 is the easiest. And then what you do next is quarter 3, 2, and 1, so 3 to 1, are more like pieces of the pie. So this is where we use our math skills to start breaking things into fractions once again. Fizzing. So the easiest thing we can do is split our quarter 4 goals in half, and that gives us quarter 2. So quarter 2 is the easiest, or the second easiest one to put, because all you got to do is split these in half. So by the end of quarter 2, I'm going to have 500 pieces of content and 5 keynote speeches, right? So I can just say that as my goal. That's the simplest way to do it. What I like to do, and what I think I did do, is I wrote down, actually I might have even just done that, but I wrote down specific things in the process of doing the 1,000 pieces of content, like slightly more specific, right? So what platforms I was using at this point, so it can spread out across the year. So let's say quarter 4, I want to have all Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, podcasts, whatever, right? Quarter 2, I might want to have half of those. So it can be steps along the process. It doesn't have to be just tangible, like just numbers, right? So the numbers just makes it really easy for me to do and to have something to aim at. And it also makes it easy to show, right? So 505 by the end of quarter 2. Then we can take quarter 3, so it's going to be right in between, right? Quarter 3 is like a halfway point between quarter 2 and quarter 4. So quarter 3 bridges that gap. So we have that gap. Quarter 3 comes in and is like, hey, let me fill that gap, make it a little bit more reasonable. So that way we're not jumping from straight to 500 to 1,000. We have the 750, and we'll say 8 for this one. So we'll say we'll have 8 done, 8 keynote speeches done by quarter 2. So again, this is just the easiest way to put it. I like to be more detailed and specific. So like, I think on my mental side, I had specific books I wanted to read. So then I would read, I have those books listed out, right? So again, the more specific, the better. These are just for example. So we have quarter 3 laid out now. Now we just need quarter 1, which quarter 1 is where we get to the harder ones as far as moving forward. But it's also where we bridge the gap between doing something, and doing nothing. Which ultimately we don't want to end up doing nothing, right? Because then we wouldn't get anywhere. So quarter 1 is where we got to put our thinking caps on. Because if you haven't done stuff like this before, you want to have it small enough to where you can make steps forward. Because again, keep in mind, quarter 1 is the first 3 months. So you have 3 months to think about, which we're going to go into the monthly goals in the next one. But we have we have the quarter to think about. So in this quarter, again, we're looking at the outputs. So by the end of quarter 1, we want to have 250 pieces of content and we'll say 2 to 3 keynote speeches. 2 keynote speeches. Which the 5 or the 10 in total is kind of, because it's 10 keynote speeches in 12 months, right? So you can't exactly just reduce it down to 1 a month. Excuse me. But now we're here. So this is our outputs. Then we have the inputs that we're ultimately going to make. And the reason why I didn't go into the inputs for the quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4 is because the inputs we're going to base those off of what we're doing in quarter one. So at the end of quarter one, we summarize everything. What did we do? How much progress did we make? Did we hit those goals? Then we relook over all of these and look at quarter two and see what we can do in quarter two, have those inputs there to make those goals. And we can even revise our quarter two, quarter three, and quarter four. So if we're making really good progress, then we can we can bring our goals further out, which means we can make our goals higher. Or say we're doing really good on track, so we have, instead of 250 by the end of quarter one, we have 300, which means we could push this overall 1,000 pieces to maybe 100 more, right? To push us even more if we're doing really well. But for quarter one, we have our outputs, the 250 pieces of content and 2 keynotes, right? Now we want to go over what inputs can we do to get there. Posting, forget the word, unique content across all channels is one of mine. Instead of just using, I can put one on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, and those count as 3. No, it's just one unique piece of content across all channels, right? So that's one of my actions, inputs. Then we can have speaking more, so I have like almost one podcast a day, right? Because I think one day out of the week I could post 2 things, right? So one podcast a week that I can then analyze, which analyzing is part of my inputs. So I have to analyze, because if I don't look at all of my stuff when I'm putting it out, I can't get better, right? I'm just repeating the same stuff over and over again. And then maybe things click in my head as I'm talking, but I'm not taking the time to actually analyze anything. So analyzing is a big one, because I need to be able to see my mistakes. Right. So now we get into our inputs. And again, it's kind of the same system. What are the best inputs that we can do to get to our output? Which is the same thing that we did for the year, and then the same thing that we did for the quarters. So quarter one, we have our output. This is what we want done. Then we have our inputs that will get to the output, which in this case is posting unique content, 1 podcast, and then analyzing everything that I can, which will get me closer to my ultimate 1-year goal of becoming the best speaker I can be. Okay? Then you can follow along with this on what you're doing, right? This is just one of my examples. And then we end up doing that for the 2 in the physical category, the 2 in the mental category, and the 2 in the spiritual category. Now, for mental and spiritual, at least for me, these come down to more of a consistency thing. Physical is the more, like, we're going to put things down on paper and doing whatever. But with spiritual, it's more of a consistency of, let's say for me, getting closer with God, I need to spend time in the Word. If I do that the same amount every single day, I'm gonna grow in that area spiritually, right? So this one's a consistency. Then we have spiritual with relationships, right? Spiritual relationships. Again, same thing. It's more of a consistency thing. So if you have something that's a consistency thing, you have it with spiritual, right? With physical, again, more of a consistency thing, which is just doing the work over time. And that's ultimately what everything else is. But if I have this, so I say spend time in the Word, pray, those all, if I stay consistent, will get me to the outcome. Right, with physical, I'm more specific because it's something that I can do more or less work with. I guess you could do that with spiritual and mental as well, but that's just how I think about it, right? And it makes it easier for me. So, The next one we're going to get into, which we kind of touched on here, is basically the inputs to get to quarter one. And then that system is going to be repeatable for quarter two, quarter three, quarter four, right? But it's basically the same system. We're going to have our outputs, which is what we want the outcome to be. And we'll have that for quarter one. So we'll start with the 250 pieces of content and 2 keynotes, and then we'll break those down with the inputs, which we already started with the inputs here. But we're going to be going into monthly goals, and then weekly, and then daily, which daily are the most important because that's the things that we do the following day or whenever you make them, right? Ideally, what I like to do is make it the day before. Okay? So for this one, that about does it. And we are done with our quarterly goals by this point. Hopefully. If you're not following along, why not? Just do it.